Okay, take two. I just tried this and I forgot what I was going to talk about. I got a minute in and I was making so many metaphors and comparisons because I'm oh so wise that I actually forgot my original topic, which was brains. And so we're going to do this again. Brains. Oh man, what is that thing up there? You know, we have these chunks of meat that are wrinkly, walnut looking thing in our head that has more neural connections than we could imagine, even fathom. That's where I got off track because I was talking about how scientists want to compare it to stars in the visible universe or grains of sand, and I just wanted to say, don't bother. None of us comprehend that. Not even the people saying that comprehend what that really means. Those types of numbers of zeros after a one, it gets into realms that humans are just better off walking away from. And all respect to mathematicians, don't get me wrong. But trying to comprehend how the brain operates with all these trillions of connections, different, potential connections between neurons, and the way that the brain can adapt to situations. The discovery of neuroplasticity, for those who don't know, in a nutshell, it's just the fact that if you do one thing for a long time or you practice something, your brain can adapt to give more energy to that. It's the way that a blind person can learn to hear better and a deaf person can learn to see better. It's the way that a musician, certain parts of their brain might actually enlarge because they're developing that part of their brain. And that for even just talking, for example, on YouTube videos, just doing what I do, for example, making these videos develops one small part of my brain somewhere. Who knows where? I don't even know if it's useful. That's not the point. Excuse me. It's no matter what you do. I'm a woodworker. Hell, I just finished this amazing. Look, it doesn't look like much from this side. Oh, but look at that beautiful wood. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do with it. It's a piece of walnut. But I was thinking about how all the years of being creative and making stuff has developed a certain part of my artistic brain, and as I feed that part of my brain, it continues to foster and want to do more of that. And that's something that's been conditioned into us through, genetic evolution. And we don't, the brain as an organ, as part of our bodies, really only tells a very small part of the story. And anyone who's studied, neurochemistry at all, which by the way, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not trying to be smarty pants here. I'm just fascinated with the way that honestly, my research into the brain came from, or my fascination with the brain came from my study on drugs and how things like LSD fill the same, receptor sites that serotonin does. Serotonin helps with a lot of our basic autonomous body functions, but also with regulates mood and certain behavioral and patterns, but also the way that we think and process the world. So literally, when I think of serotonin, it's like our reality chemical. All of these things, it might be like the master key, but LSD and also psilocybin, mimic this and simulate it. So you end up with an experience that is different than reality, which is what the trip is. And that is something that I don't want to get into here because it's not, but I mean, it's part of the topic. But it's, when it gets to the brain, I mean, when I talk about neurons and the brain itself, that's just the medical version of what the brain is. And there seems to be a debate within the community of, say, materialists and spiritualists that know the brain is just a collection of neurons that happens to process things a certain way, and therefore that's our reality. And then the spiritualist who says, no, our brain isn't even, the main thing. It's something from elsewhere. It's our spirit, our soul. But my thought is, why couldn't it be the both? I've always wondered this. Why couldn't it be a projection? And I've always thought of the brain like a projector. There's information coming in at all times. And that information is being processed by the brain and relayed to the body. But we've also learned that the stomach has its own neurons. I don't know if it's 20,000 or 20 million, but it's like a small brain within the stomach. And that connects with other organs and also through the vagus nerve, which goes from the stomach all the way up to the spinal column to the brain. Now, that nerve is why when you have a headache, sometimes you'll puke. It's not necessarily that your headache made you puke. Could be that you have a stomach ache and it's being processed as a headache to let you know that you're sick. It's happened to me so many times that I realized it was something I ate or drank, but the headache accompanying it isn't necessarily the main source of, the vomiting. So it's interesting how the body works and how it warns us of certain things. How when something just feels wrong or off, you can sense it. Even, situations we just can't explain, knowing someone's going to call, or, the weird little things that happen that most people write off. And I've always said, you cannot write those off. You can write off most of in my opinion, all the big claims by any spiritualists that say this is what happens when you die or you reincarnate. I don't think anyone really understands any of this. I haven't, anyway, in my personal research and discussions and exploring, which is as deep as I can go, have not discovered anything that warrants investigation beyond a person's subjective opinion or circumstance. And I believe that humans create their own reality in so many ways that it's very understated. That it's not that, like, if everyone tomorrow decided to think differently and decided to work on thinking differently, or everyone had the same epiphany, right? Not likely to happen, but whatever it might be, it would change the way our brains function. And over generations, the human race would be a completely different, group. Therefore, you have to wonder, could we ever do any better than we're already doing? Or is the human brain just where it should be? I read once that the human mind, the brain, compared to the body size, according to the gravity of Earth, and the amount that has to do with the amount of blood that can be pumped to make sure the brain's taken care of, right, from the heart. In order for the heart size and brain size, we actually have the perfect size brain. Because if it gets any larger, then it requires more blood, therefore a bigger body. And that's why, we seem to be at the ideal size, I guess. And I thought maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But it's kind of interesting that humans exist at all, that we can even manage to survive. Think about it this way. When we get up in the morning, we go through our routines. Some of that routine's a lot of bullshit. But those routines are something that every animal does. We seem to kind of despise the work week. We despise having to have responsibilities. But every creature does. And we think we want a simple life. But the thing is, the simple life could be very lean living. Think about the squirrel that only collects a few nuts. He'll get through the winter. The one who's out busting his ass is getting more. That's kind of the law of nature. The survival of the fittest, in a sense, is true. But the fittest has a very wide berth of what that means. Anyhow, we often question our purpose, and that we rightly so, because we wonder if we're actually a creature that was just, came to be through natural processes that has maybe an underlying, and I would say the universe, the reason I brought up the stars is they look like the neural networks, the way that space operates, whether you believe in electric currents in space. There are many different theories, but I don't think any of them, a lot of theories have been disproven. Even Einstein's theories have holes in them, and we're discovering a lot of new things. I've said that to a couple of people, and they're like, oh, how dare you think Einstein's equations are wrong? Well, some scientists have actually proven that Einstein was mistaken about certain things. It's not that that's a bad thing. That's called change, progress. We can't be idolizing individuals. You got to separate the equations from the individuals. It's not about hanging onto your heroes and what they believe, because that's what's held us back for so long, I guess. But really, as a species, we can change how we feel, change the way our brains operate by just deciding to. And that in itself, that's pretty fucking amazing when you think about it. I mean, I guess the question would be, how much of it can't we change? How much of our brains is just natural? Like, no matter how peaceful you try to be, you still have to eventually defend yourself, right? So there has to be a certain amount of, violence available within you to effectively defend yourself or protect yourself. I just don't know. It's complicated stuff. Anyhow, I guess that's about all I've got. So I will talk to you all next time. And let me know what you all think about the brain. I mean, is it the projector? Is it... I guess I always picture it kind of like the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon cover, right? You send in a white light and it projects rainbows. It's like it's the decoder, and it opens up the way that we think. I mean, it gets into some deep shit. I know I didn't go very far on this at all. It's not like, do we have free will? Do you believe in free will or determinism? Do you, does any of that matter? I don't really get into those philosophical debates. I don't think that they're as important. The idea of free will and determinism, I can just shut that one down right now. It doesn't matter. You'll never know. I'd rather know whether there's an overarching opinion, or an overarching being that's always watching us, such as, quote, a god, or B, more like an energy that we are part of, a source that isn't necessarily concerned with worldly issues, but that is there, that we morph and ebb and flow from, which would mean that maybe we change into something else, who knows, different forms of energy. Or C, we just are born and die, and somehow weird shit came together in the universe, and the universe came together for some weird reason, and then here we are. And that's a little bit harder to believe. So, let me know what you all think. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.